What's up, guys? This is Nick from Arch City Poker, and in today's video we're going to be discussing 3 things to consider before bluffing. Become a thinking poker player. First thing is, what does your bluff accomplish? Do you get better hands to fold? Raising pocket jacks in position on ace 8-6 rainbow versus your opponent's pot size lead is not a good bluff. You only usually get ace x plus to continue and worse hands to fold, such as king, queen, and pocket fives. Notice the pot size lead and the flop texture. Your opponent should be more polarized here, so raising is not usually an attractive option. Raising 5-4 suited in position on jack 3 deuce rainbow versus your opponent's half pot lead is a good bluff. You lack showdown value and could fold out better combos in your opponent's range, such as pocket 10s or 9s, and maybe even ace king and king queen. Notice the half pot lead here in the texture. Your opponent should be a little more merged with the smaller bet size and should not have many made combos. Therefore, raising becomes more attractive. 5-4 suited is a very obvious combo as it's the open-ender, guys. Another, like a few other combos that I could give you are king-queen suited with a backdoor flush draw or 10-9 suited with a backdoor flush draw that kind of wrap around that jack on the flop, where you can pick up gutters or open-enders on the turn. You can pick up good flush draws. These will be decent combos to attack opponents that are likely overfolding to raises in your games, in the player pools that you guys are playing in. Opponents should not be often folding pocket 10s or 9s, but you will see this. If you do see an opponent flash you a hand like pocket 10s in the spot, you can raise them pretty much relentlessly on this type of texture when they're going to be folding that strong of a hand. Think about what your bluff accomplishes for your combo and if it is truly the better option than calling or folding. Now, the second concept is going to be, can you credibly represent value hands? And this expands on the last slide in the sense that we were discussing specific combos. This is now more of a GTO thought process, and you really need to think about your range and think in terms of ranges. Do you credibly represent value hands within your range on specific board textures? Pretty much what I just said. You want to think about value hands you represent when bluffing and vice versa. Check raising jack 10 of hearts as the early position pre-flop raiser on ace king 6 rainbow with a backdoor heart draw, I should say, versus an in position loose aggressive pre-flop caller is a good bluff because you can represent nuttish combos such as ace king plus that fit into a polarized range. The bonus here is your opponent can't have that many nuttish combos due to his pre-flop action capping his range. He would have 3-bet pocket aces and pocket kings pre-flop, and he would have 3-bet ace king and ace queen very often. So on a board texture where you represent all the nuttish hands and your opponent can't, you're going to have a little more fold equity. You don't really have showdown value with jack 10. You do have the gutter and the backdoor hearts. So with this nuttish, I guess, overall raw equity that you can, in fact, have on a lot of runouts, or at least some runouts, and the fact that you have a lot of fold equity in this spot, being able to represent value hands, this is a good spot to mix it up, where I think I would usually lead this combo, but you do want to protect your checking range and not always just have air or something like pocket 10s or 9s in the spot. You would like to check raise a loose aggressive opponent who may be prone to stabbing too often when checked to. And concepts such as player opponent type, capped ranges, these are concepts that I could have easily added into this presentation. However, I want you guys to think for yourselves, and you'll see at the end of the video, I'm going to encourage you to give me examples of things to consider when bluffing that I didn't have in this presentation. Concepts or hand examples, you guys will see at the end of the presentation though. Another example here is check raising king jack of spades on 7-6-5 with 2 spades as the early position pre-flop raiser versus an in-position solid opponent who called you pre-flop. That isn't the best bluff because you don't represent that many nuttish combos in your range, if any at all. You will be, in fact, repping mostly draws and some overpairs and then obviously some rare sets and straights, but your opponent, if solid, is going to likely realize this, and he can, in fact, 3-bet you and put you in a bad situation with most of your range. You want to have some good draws in your check calling range in this spot to protect yourself on future runouts. If you only have overpairs, for example, your opponent can always go bet on many runouts and attack your cap range. Combos that will fit well into a check calling range in this situation would be overpairs, overcards with flush draws, and something like pocket eights, where you have some showdown value and you do well on straight runouts, like 4-card straight runouts, where the turn's going to be a 4 or a 9 or even an 8 that gives you a set. The point is, though, is your perceived range will not have that many nuttish combos in it on this texture. That's why check raising with a hand like 9-8 or sets here is pretty good, and by pretty good I mean very optimal, just because you can represent a lot of bluffs. And that's the flip side of can you credibly represent value hands, is when you have value hands, can you represent bluffs? So that's a little bonus tidbit for you guys. Just think about what you can credibly represent with your range. When you're bluffing, can you represent value hands? The third and final concept, and I would say last but not least, is what is your image? Image is an incredibly undervalued concept in all of poker, and your image can really determine how much fold equity you really have in a specific spot or situation. Let's say you have established a very loose and aggressive image in a PLO game, and you decide to 3-bet in position versus a cutoff open with Queen 10, 8-5 double suit. This will often result in either a cold call from the blinds or 4-bet from the blinds or the cutoff himself, because they know how active you have been and will start attacking you way more often at this point. Now, let's say you've been a little card dead and decide to make this same move with a tighter image. The blinds will fold more often, and you will often end up heads up post flop in position where you have a huge advantage most times over your opponent, or even better, you will just take down the pot immediately. Always keep in mind what your perceived image is and what your opponents possibly think about you. Do you have previous history with any of these opponents at your table? So thanks for watching. As always, direct feedback to the comment section. If you guys have any more things to consider when bluffing, please let me know. Like I said, I purposely have left out some concepts and things to consider just so you guys can be a little more engaged and think for yourselves. Either give me some hand examples or just even some conceptual things such as the 3 things that I had here where we can add in and discuss them a little bit more. So until next time, this is Nick from Arch City Poker. Take care.